Hello everyone, we're going to get started in just 1 minute. Hello again, we're going to get started in just a minute. Thank you for joining. Your phone line is muted. This webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording and slides will be shared. Hello again and welcome to our webinar on making summer youth employment work. My name is Leslie Gabay-Swanston, Director of Program and Systems Quality at the National Summer Learning Association. Before we get started, here's an overview of our discussion today. First, I'll share a little bit about NSLA for those of you who are unfamiliar before we hear from our panelists. In preparing for this webinar, we wanted to make sure our panelists were able to answer as many of the questions that were on the top of most people's minds. So rather than trying to do a live Q&A answer period, we're going to go through some of the questions that were submitted during the registration process. We think this will allow us to get to more questions. After that, we will wrap up with some announcements about upcoming events and webinars. The National Summer Learning Association is the only national nonprofit exclusively focused on addressing the achievement and opportunity gap by increasing access to summer learning opportunities. NSLA's goal is to increase nationwide the number of high-quality summer learning programs. To achieve this goal, NSLA recognizes and disseminates what works, offers expertise and support for programs and communities, and advocates for summer learning as a solution for equity and excellence in education. NSLA's work is driven by the belief that all children and youth deserve high-quality summer learning experiences that will help them succeed in college, career, and life. Core to our work is the recognition that high-quality summer learning programs work and have been shown to improve reading and math skills, school attachment, motivation, and relationships with adults and peers. We know that summer is a time of great inequity for young people, and we believe that promoting and supporting summer opportunities is a way to address this. This goes beyond the summer learning that's in our name. We also want to see programs and communities addressing access to other resources like meals. Summer is a time for innovation and exploration. Without some of the constraints of the school year, kids are able to try different ways of learning and interacting with other adults and peers that they might not otherwise. It is also a time of innovation for adults, whether it's opportunities for professional development, trying out new teaching methods, or exploring new partnerships. Today, we will be exploring summer youth employment programs. I'm happy to welcome our first presenter from the National League of Cities, Jasleen Siseko, Senior Program Specialist, Education and Expanded Learning.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again to NSLA for having us on this webinar today, and I'm so honored to be among these other great panelists. So today I'm going to be talking about the status of summer youth employment programs, the benefits, impact as a result of COVID, and how that should inform what we think about as we develop strategies to support summer youth employment programs. So historically, we know that summer youth employment programs started receiving increased focus since the rise of youth employment during the Great Recession. But persistently low rates of youth employment remain troublesome because evidence shows that early work experience can bolster long-term academic, and health outcomes. So we're seeing that having a job between the ages of 16 to 18 is positively associated with job quality in adulthood, while unemployment in young adulthood is negatively associated with job quality in adulthood. So this is suggesting that early work experience is a long-term effect on socioeconomic mobility. There are 4.5 million young people nationwide who are neither in school or at work. Disconnected youth are at higher risk than their peers for lower future earnings, lower educational attainment, poor health outcomes, and criminal justice involvement. Low-income students of color face disparities in accessing and benefiting from important early work opportunities. These disparities may exacerbate the already limited prospect for economic security and stability these students face. At the National League of Cities, we put together a number of messaging and content material that cities are able to use when they are talking to their elected officials, and also as elected officials when they are talking to their partners. You'll see those on the screen right now, and this will be shared after the presentation as well. These resources are really to think about what the impact of summer youth employment is on cities and their students. But a question that we find ourselves often asking is, what better time to gain much needed work experience than during the summer break? So around the world and nationwide before COVID, we saw the momentum continue to build and to expand employment and educational pathways for millions of low-income youth who lack access to education, training, and employment opportunities. Sorry, I'm getting you at this talking and transitioning slides. We know that by 2025, 65% of jobs in the United States will require some form of post-secondary education, training, or credentialing, which is up 28% from the 1970s. So these heightened expectations will require young people to gain work experience and develop skills today that would enable to compete with the global workforce of the future. As of this morning, we heard that 33 million people have applied for unemployment, with April anticipated to be the worst month in job loss, with the potential of wiping out decades worth of job gains. Not only that, school closures due to COVID-19 have impacted at least 55.1 million students. And due to school closures, students are learning at home and sometimes not at all, which is exacerbating existing inequities in student access and learning that we have seen in our education system. But historically, after-school and summer learning programs have served to curb academic loss, support social and emotional development, and to prepare you for the workforce. You see on your screen here, summer youth employment programs offer a myriad of opportunities for participants. They offer skill development, increased earnings, improved school attendance and educational outcomes, reduced involvement in juvenile and criminal justice system, and a pipeline of workers and reduced poverty. But unfortunately, even before COVID, the demand for summer youth employment in many cities across the country was much higher than the number of available job opportunities. Despite the creation of more summer roles, only approximately 38% of young people looking for jobs were able to find positions. Before COVID, cities are thinking about expanding new opportunities or expanding new programs or expanding their existing ones. But unfortunately, due to COVID impact and the budget cuts that cities are facing, it is impacting the services that cities are able to offer. So over the past couple of weeks, the National League of Cities has been in conversation with a number of our cities that provide summer youth employment programs, really thinking about what has the impact of COVID-19 been on their cities, and how are they moving forward with their summer youth employment programs. So we have seen that there's a large variation in the impact in programs and also the impact in the number of students that they're able to serve. We have seen that there's an impact on the capacity to operate these programs as well. So in the cities that are no longer able to provide summer youth employment programs, there is a huge gap in the number of students that they're able to serve. The cities that are transitioning to virtual learning are thinking through what does that look like, but also addressing the increasing need for digital equity. We know that even if we're transitioning to virtual learning, students need to still have access to the digital items that they would need to access these platforms. So we know that the impact of summer youth employment is well documented. So we know that teens who work at 86% are more likely to be employed the next year. Participation in work-based learning activity can increase a young person's salary by as much as 11% for up to 8 years after high school. Older youth who have almost 100% chance of being employed if they are worked more than 40 weeks the previous year. So I know today you're going to have the opportunity to hear from a number of folks who are currently working on their summer youth employment plans. But I did want to go ahead and take the opportunity to highlight 2 programs that we have been speaking to and what they are doing right now to transition in this new world. So in the city of Baltimore, 14 students prior to COVID-19 applied for their YouthWorks program. In the city of Baltimore, they are in a partnership with the Digital Harbor Foundation to develop a 5-week future of work teleworking curriculum, which would include design thinking, invention education, computer science, media creation, SAT, and ACT prep. In addition to that, they're also going to be offering mentorship opportunities, which organically happen in the workplace naturally, but due to the virtual content requires a little bit more strategic thinking and intentionality. So in this case, they're partnering with a number of mentors and connecting them with the students that they would be a part of these programs. Another part about the city of Baltimore and the rapid response to this COVID-19 is that they have included youth voice into their preparation, which is really important because youth are often on the front lines in identifying what their needs are. We've also seen and heard from the city of Kansas, Missouri, where the former mayor, Sly James, created this Hire Casey program. So what they are doing in Hire Casey is they are partnering with the school district who has an existing virtual learning platform called NEPRIS that they are using to create workforce-based learning opportunities for students. So in addition to that, they are creating work-ready modules. So what that means is if a student is not being placed in an existing program, these students are being asked to complete 30 minutes of a module that gives them work-based learning credentialing or certification. Students are also being paid for these opportunities. In Hire Casey, they are partnering with Sprint in their 1 million project to make sure that students that do not have access to technology already are able to have access to broadband, because a lot of this will be conducted virtually. Another part about Hire Casey is that they are actively engaging in youth voice. So they have recruited alumni from former years or past years to participate, or youth that are interested in having this opportunity to really be a voice in the conversation as they not only look to implement work-based learning opportunities now, but in the future as well. So we know these 3 things are really important and have been highlighted throughout a number of the conversations that we have had with our cities who are tackling this front-on. So we know that we need to have strong city leaders as champions in these conversations. Summer youth employment programs continue to be important before COVID-19 and now, especially now as our workforce continues to change. Another part of the success in partnerships or the success in summer youth employment is the building of multi-sector partnerships. You heard me talk about the city of Kansas and who they are partnering with to continue their work-based opportunities, but the private and public sector are working together to increase the number of summer job opportunities available to young people by tackling existing workforce and economic development strategies and discovering innovative ways to create jobs. So overall, cities report significant progress in maintaining or expanding summer jobs, but we know that a number of them are being impacted by what's happening with COVID. Employers, the retainment of employers has been difficult because a lot of these employers that were previously a part of their workforce opportunities or their summer youth employment programs are no longer even able to pay their own staff. But this is where the strong private-public partnerships really come in to maintain and retain these opportunities for students. In addition to that, you heard me talk about how Kansas and both Baltimore were including youth voice in the preparation process. So including youth voice has been really critical, as we said that youth are really on the front lines and understand their needs best. Underserved youth often don't have places to voice their opinions, so having them included in the fold of their own programs is really critical. So we know that tackling the teen unemployment crisis and creating pathways to success for young adults is a priority for cities across the country. Summer youth employment programs help to address these challenges by providing young adults with a chance to discover interests, build skills, explore careers, have experience that can serve as a foundation for educational and professional success. But we know that COVID-19 has impacted cities across the country in a number of different ways. So the National League of Cities has a number of resources that cities can look upon and navigate through our COVID-19 resource page. But we also know that right now, what cities are looking for is support from the federal government. So the National League of Cities has also launched a huge campaign called Cities Are Essential, because we know that the frontline individuals that are providing these critical programs are city staff. So we need to be able to support them during this critical time. So we are asking federal leaders to consider $500 billion in additional relief funds to states and municipalities in the next stimulus package. We know that a number of cities are experiencing budget cuts to some of these critical programs. So right now is a really important time to continue to maintain these programs and, if anything, expand on them, because they continue to be an opportunity to support youth during a very ambiguous time. Before I'm done, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to a network of individuals that I work very closely with. You will hear from Dawn in just a minute from the Charlotte, North Carolina. She is a part of our Mayor's Education Policy Advisors Network, which is a network of the 75 largest cities and the senior municipal staff that support cities on educational issues. I'm really lucky to get to work with these individuals often. And these individuals are really working on summer youth employment programs and thinking through some of the questions a lot of you are having today. Next Thursday, and I can discuss this later as well, the National League of Cities will be having a second part to this conversation about summer youth employment. Please feel free to contact myself or my colleague Bella Shaw Spooner at the information below, and I look forward to the rest of this conversation.
Thank you, Jesseline. Next, we're going to hear from the team in Charlotte, North Carolina. Don Hill, Youth Programs and Business Partnerships Manager of the City of Charlotte. Austin Halbert, Founder and CEO of the Radius Group. And Charlie Gill, Public Sector Account Manager of LinkedIn Learning. Don?
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, National Summer Learning Association, NSLA, for having me today. And thank all of you for joining us as well. First out of the gate, I just want to say that probably like most of you, I'm feeling like, we're not in Kansas any longer. There's so much has changed in our community and the world since we launched our 2020 Mayor's Youth Employment Program last fall. Thousands and thousands of youth across the nation are seriously at risk of losing, or they may have already lost their workforce learning opportunities and internship stipends for this summer due to business closures prompted by the COVID-19 health crisis. And as SYEPs, many of you are working to respond to these challenges. And at the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, we too are adjusting our strategies to respond to this crisis. I want to highlight for you one of the priority initiatives we're focusing on for this summer. And as Leslie mentioned, that I'm going to be joined by Austin Halbert of the Radius Group and Charlie Gill of LinkedIn Learning, who will share with you a little bit about what we're going to be doing together this summer in terms of virtual learning. But before we do that, I'd like to share a little bit about the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, or the MYUP as we affectionately call it. The Mayor's Youth Employment Program is a 34-year-old program that exists solely for the purpose of providing all Charlotte youth with equitable career development opportunities to explore the world of work. We want to make sure that our students are building social capital, because we know that social capital matters, and we want to also enhance economic mobility. Most of you guys remember when Charlotte landed 50th out of 50 of cities of our size. In terms of economic mobility, we landed last. And that's not a list that we want to remain on, because it does not represent how we care for our children in Charlotte. Next slide, please. So how do we do this with the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, which is our flagship program? we have four ways that four areas of concentration. And the first one is exposure to the world of work. That includes job shadowing and mentoring and et cetera. The second one is job and career readiness training. And this is our essential skills training that we offer in 30 out of 31 Charlotte-Mecklenburg high schools. And we offer this uniquely. We have this partnership with our school district that we offer it during the school day. We also offer it at the community level for students who are home, charter, e-learning, private schools, or also for youth and older youth who may not be currently in school. And so they are able to take advantage of this job and career readiness training that we have perfected in our area. The third way is through work experiences, and you'll hear about the two tracks we have to offer for students. And in terms of work experiences, one is the in-person track and the other one is a little bit about the virtual track. And then finally, good paying jobs. You know, that's a separate program from the Marriage to Employment program. It still reports up to me, but the good paying jobs is an initiative that we launched about 5 years ago to make sure that we have equitable economic opportunities for all youth and older youth. And we do that by providing them with job fairs and other career resources. So just next slide, please. Just like most SYEPs, Charlotte struggles with having enough internship placements to meet the demand. And so I wanted to make sure that I shared this visual with you to help you better understand the gravity of what we're going through in Charlotte. The map on your left contains hundreds and hundreds of students who have completed applications to participate in the Maya. And the map on your right shows the number of host employers who committed to provide an internship experience. The map on the right is a little bit skewed because it does not have all of the actual placement locations. If you are a corporation like Bank of America, it lists the local headquarters for Bank of America in Charlotte, and it doesn't list all of the banking centers where the students may be placed at. So it's a little bit skewed that way, but nonetheless, I wanted to show this graphic so you can understand just how far we need to come in gaining more private sector participation to be able to offer great opportunities for our students. One of the solutions for helping us to scale up right now is the hybrid program that we're offering, which is the two tracks, that traditional and the virtual internship program. Next slide. Thank you. And so with that traditional internship program, you know, students work on site with host employers. They're matched based upon their career interests, and students work on average 25 hours per week. They can work more, but they can't work any less. They work for 6 weeks at $9 per hour. They can make more per hour. They just can't make less than $9. And for the traditional interns, they work basically 150 hours per week. I mean, 150 hours, for the entire internship tenure. For our virtual program, students will have an opportunity to select between 1 and 5 virtual pathways that they want to explore. Students are engaged for 4 days per week for 5 hours per day through asynchronous and synchronous learning provided by LinkedIn Learning and Radius Learning. This is a partnership between the City of Charlotte and Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, and we also have some community stakeholders who are partners in this as well. The students for the virtual learning will also earn $9 per hour, but the difference is that they will only have to fulfill 100 hours. In closing, next slide, please. In closing, I wanted to make sure that I shared our brand wall because we have something unique happening in Charlotte. While we were losing in-person internships, now that we've been creating this virtual internship for about 3 weeks now with LinkedIn Learning and the Radius Learning Group, we have had about half of our host employers kind of break away and withdraw, but some of them have come back to the table because they want to have us help them create a virtual experience for interns coming to their businesses. And so they won't have to have them not have an experience over the summer. They actually are getting it, and they're designing virtual experiences for our youth as well. And so we want to say kudos to all of those different companies who are helping to design virtual internship opportunities on their with their students at their companies. And even the ones that weren't able to participate, some of them have decided to go ahead and fund that student having a virtual experience as well. Next slide, please. And I don't have enough time to read this slide to in its entirety, but what I want to basically call your attention to is that we all are SYEP strong. We're here together to support one another. I want you to know that you're not alone. You can always reach out to Charlotte. We're happy to jump on the phone or email or just have exchange through a virtual communication so that we can help to continue to uplift each other. Thank you. And now I'll toss it over to Austin Halbert, and he'll share more about the virtual experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Dawn. So I will go ahead and introduce our partnership with the City of Charlotte, which has come together pretty quickly over the past month as a result of coalition building that's been done between employers, between the government in Charlotte, and folks who are just really invested in making sure that the workforce outcomes are there for youth this summer and beyond. So our focus has been on expanding virtual pathways as an alternative to traditional internships. So in a few slides, I'll sort of give you a preview of what that looks like in Charlotte and what it could mean for other cities. So our focus in Charlotte has been on providing a solution for students this summer, but also looking at the long view on systems change for youth employment. So we see that in Charlotte and in many cities around the country, that youth born into households with low-income parents often only have a marginal rise in income by the time that they reach age 35. So one of the central questions when we started our work in Charlotte was, what does it mean to make sure that we can do our best job at saving this program this summer and creating strong outcomes for youth? But how can we also use this moment to think about long-term system change and the pathways that youth will need to have income mobility, and how the City of Charlotte can deliver that at scale? So today, as we enter a rapidly changing economy, we see a need for sort of new workforce solutions that can adapt in line with the needs of employers. So our work with Radius is focused on expanding virtual pathways for youth to discover the jobs of the future with top employers. So we've worked with institutions like NASA to have students learn systems engineering by designing space missions, with Unilever and agriculture, having students chart sustainable farming systems, fashion design with H&M. And in Charlotte, what's exciting is that we'll be able to bring together a coalition of employers to build out 5 tracks in line with the major sectors in the Charlotte region. So health, general business, manufacturing, technology, and we'll then be able to expand beyond that. But basically what this will look like is, if the track is financial technology, might be in partnership with a company like Bank of America, and over the 5 weeks, students will have an assignment to conceptualize a financial app that can sort of serve residents who have been affected by wage loss. And so they'll go through a real world assignment. All students in that track will take on the same assignment that's been scoped out by Bank of America and built with our learning and experience design team. So this provides the same benefits of an internship with skills development, opening an entry point to the future workforce, and opening access to networks, but it allows us to engage more students in a virtual environment. And so it's exciting here is that we've been able to bring together a strong coalition to make this work that I think can really be a showcase for what can be done in other cities. So we knew going into this that there's no off-the-shelf solution for what we're facing right now in youth employment. So Charlotte helped to sort of coordinate this Pathways partnership where Radius will provide the virtual work-based experiences powered by some really interactive content from LinkedIn Learning, which Charlie will go through in a bit. And so we've been able to be creative in making this work. So before I pass it on to Charlie, just wanted to sort of leave us all with a design challenge to really imagine in this moment what it could look like if every young person had an entry point to a stable future. If we look at just what we need to achieve in the next 2 months, it's a bit daunting, but this is a time for us to really be creative and think about how we can shape the future of workforce education for these youth. So what we did in Charlotte was said, what is it possible to achieve for us to achieve in summer 2020? But what does that mean as well for what we can achieve in 2021 and beyond? And yeah, anyone interested in sort of exploring that conversation further can reach out. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Charlie to talk a bit about LinkedIn's perspective in the space as well.
Thanks, Austin, and thanks to Leslie for coordinating this webinar. I found it to be incredibly insightful so far. Happy to give my insight from the LinkedIn perspective, and just by way of introduction, I'm one of our account managers specifically for LinkedIn Learning, which is our online learning platform. LinkedIn got into online learning back in 2015 through the acquisition of a company called lynda.com, which was really the industry leader in professional and business-based online learning since the 90s. But before I get into LinkedIn Learning and how LinkedIn Learning is going to be utilized this summer to support MyEP in Charlotte, I just want to take a step back and look at LinkedIn more holistically. You know, I assume that everybody on this call has heard of LinkedIn. I hope that you all have a LinkedIn profile. For a job seeker, no matter their age, not having a LinkedIn profile is a major disadvantage in the job market. It really is the first place that most hiring managers are going to be looking when they get a job application is, does this person have a LinkedIn profile? Do they have an online presence? What is their experience? How do they present themselves online? And additionally, for somebody who is looking for a job, the ability to leverage the millions of job postings on LinkedIn, the millions of members who use LinkedIn and could potentially make an introduction or provide an opportunity is essential. And so we've discussed with Dawn and Charlotte and with many organizations across the country, including the Workforce Development System, local one-stops, American Job Centers, about how they can better be leveraging LinkedIn and helping their customers, whether that's a youth who's just graduating from college and looking for employment, whether that's someone who's filing for unemployment, has been working for 20 years and now has no job, helping them, one, create a LinkedIn profile, two, begin building that brand, connecting with employers and others in their network. But two, as an organization, to actually create alumni groups on LinkedIn so that when these individuals create profiles, you can actually associate them to that group, help them network and connect with each other over time through that group, and also use it as a means to track their outcomes. So if a student goes through a summer internship program this summer and you have their LinkedIn profile attached to a group, you can go there 5 years later and, assuming they did update their experience and their education and new jobs that they have gotten, then you're going to have a good sense of what that outcome is, where they've gone in their career. But with that said, I do want to dive into LinkedIn Learning more specifically and how that relates to what we're doing in Charlotte. See if I can go to the next slide here. There it goes. So I don't have so many slides, and I really use the slides as a way to help bring out some ideas. What you see here, we are an online learning platform built to provide the most in-demand skills for today's job market. And there are a couple different ways we do that based around 3 pillars: creating content, providing an experience for learners that's going to actually facilitate learning, and third, we use insights to dictate pretty much everything that we do. What I mean by insights really is synthesizing data from LinkedIn.com. LinkedIn.com has thousands of job postings, millions of companies, 600 million members, And through the aggregate data that we can pull from what really is a digital mapping of our global economy, we call it the economic graph. By taking that data and looking at it holistically, we can understand what are the most common jobs right now available for hire. What are the most popular skills associated with those jobs that companies are hiring for? And you can extrapolate that further to essentially dictate what type of content you might create on a training portal so that somebody who logs in is going to have instant access to gaining those skills that are most relevant for the job market. And so I want to get into a little bit about what our content is. And if I wasn't clear, we are a producer of online learning, video-based content, and we provide it through a platform called LinkedIn Learning. The content that we produce, it's really quite unique in the online learning space in that we build it all ourselves. You'll find that there are lots of online learning providers, and typically they are aggregating content or outsourcing it from lots of different places. What's very important to us at LinkedIn Learning is that we produce content that has very respected, qualified authors, business people, industry experts. We bring them on site to our video production studio in California, and we produce very high quality online tutorials. We add 50, 60, 70 of these every single week, primarily in English, but across 6 other languages as well. But the amount of content is, I think, less relevant. What's more relevant is what that content covers. So I mentioned we use LinkedIn data to understand the most in-demand skills for today's job market. So we are constantly updating what types of courses are available to support those skills. So some highlights here: career development. Especially for a youth, these are really key core competencies around building a personal brand, a professional brand, how to dress for the workplace, business acumen, understanding finances. But we also offer training towards specific or job titles, such as sales, marketing, project management, HR, and software. We all, I think we're all adapting to new technology use now, a lot of digital transformation that's being forced, right? And so there are lots of us out here who are struggling. Hey, how do I use this new software? How do I get this technology to work for me in my job? And so we create a lot of courses to cover that for both somebody who's more basic, needs to figure out how to write an email, is looking to learn general business software like Microsoft Word or Excel, or for someone who's more advanced and maybe is looking to learn a coding language or other kind of IT topics. This is the second to last slide I have, and it just covers a few aspects about our platform that I think really support more directly how we engage with a learner, because it is online. One of the big challenges you all are facing this summer is that you're taking much of what you've done in the past in person and finding a way to do it as well or better differently, virtually. And so a few things that are unique about LinkedIn that are going to be benefiting the students in Charlotte is, one, we provide personalized recommendations to every user on LinkedIn Learning based on skills they've indicated they want to learn, jobs they've indicated they want to attain, their experience, what their connections are watching on LinkedIn, so that when a user logs into LinkedIn Learning, they're immediately finding content that is relevant to them and their career goals. And I think we all know that students, young people, don't always have the greatest attention spans, right? And it's really key to engage them with content that seems relevant right away. Like when you log into Netflix and you see a movie there or a show that you probably will like because Netflix has started to figure out what you like. We do the same thing with learning. Another key advantage is that we offer it on a mobile platform. So LinkedIn Learning, I know that many students may have a hard time getting onto a computer, but most are likely to have a smartphone. Many students may have other things going on in their lives, aren't able to sit down for 3 or 4 hours in one sitting, but can be engaging with content mobily. Young people really respond well to mobile information. It's how they expect to consume information. So it's really important for us to be able to deliver learning where they're at in a convenient way for them. Our courses range from about 5 minutes to about 5 hours. So there is really something for everybody, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, which gives not only students more options to learn courses or to take courses that might suit them versus the person who's doing the internship next door, but it also gives administrators the ability to pick and choose micro bits of content or longer content offerings to support the learning needs of their constituents. And then the last highlight I want to point out here is the actual integration with LinkedIn.com, which is so key. One of the biggest challenges for a student is that they don't have past internships. They don't have past jobs. Maybe they don't have parents or friends' parents who have the types of jobs they want to get. And so what LinkedIn Learning does is it allows them to, as they are learning, spending time investing in themselves and their development, they can also advertise and share those learning achievements with their networks on LinkedIn with one click by adding course completion badges to their LinkedIn profile when they complete those courses, by adding relevant skills that they've learned to their profile upon completion, which not only helps them, again, build that brand and tell their story, but it also makes them more likely to surface in search results when a recruiter or a hiring manager on LinkedIn searches for someone, say, with Excel skills or public speaking skills. They will be more likely to populate in those results. So I know that we're getting near time here. So I have one last slide, and it just points out a little bit of a snapshot of what we're going to be helping build in Charlotte. Given training and professional development has always been a core component of the MyApp, we want to be able to support that in a way that's going to be convenient for the students virtually through the platform I just described to you, that can also be customized by MyApp so that it can be used alongside the work-based simulated work experiences provided through Radius Learn. So if somebody, say, is being asked to filter an Excel spreadsheet in order to complete their Bank of America project, they can actually take advantage of LinkedIn Learning training on how to filter in Excel before doing that project. But it also gives the MyApp long-term ability to customize learning paths, sequences of courses within LinkedIn Learning, assign them out to students, and over time track their progress along those courses, and actually provide them more of a long-term impact, a long-term way to stay engaged with these students and help them develop their skills with very little human capital needed. So I'm going to stop there. Happy to take more questions or chat with anyone offline, but really excited for what we're going to be building this summer in Charlotte, and wish the best of luck to every one of you in the great work that you're doing for the youth in your community and as you adapt to the new normal we're living in this summer. Thanks.
Thank you, Charlie. Lastly, we're going to hear from Josh Bruno, School to Career Director at Boston Private Industry Council, about what they're going to be doing in Boston.
Hi all, good afternoon. I had every week a different slide deck and decided to scrap the slides because things are changing daily. So let me just give you a quick overview. My name is Josh Bruno. I'm the Director of School to Career here at the Boston Private Industry Council. The Boston PIC is in charge of the private sector component of the Mayor's Summer Jobs Campaign. On a good year, last year, we had 1,400 private sector internships, high-level internships that we had for our young people of the Boston Public Schools. We also had 500 jobs in community-based organizations, young people working at camps, getting CPR certified. And then we had another 1,000 or so young people just get jobs at retail places mostly. And most of those are summer jobs that sometimes roll over into school year jobs. And so, that I'm just representing the Mayor Summer Jobs Campaign in the private sector. The mayor is also an amazing partner and will put around 3,500 young people to work with city money in community-based organizations and nonprofits. And then we also have other entities that are gonna, John Hancock, for example, has a program where they put 500 young people to work in camps and other nonprofits. And then we have another one called ABCD, which is another nonprofit that would work with young people to get them jobs as well. So, but what's happening on May 7th is just, we have never seen this before, obviously. So we have to reimagine what our internships and jobs look like and how young people can be engaged, productive, and then, which is no secret to anyone, most of our young people's paychecks in the summer go to supplementing or helping family income. So some of that money that they're earning, Boston is lucky. We have our minimum wage is $12.75 this year, but a percentage of that money when they come and get their checks, we know that it's going to their parents for household bills, whether it's food, electric, whatever it might be. So we know that some of our private sector companies are not going to be able to hire. We are still working with them to figure out what we can imagine an internship and job look like. So, what would it look like? Is it going to be, we're talking to our colleges and universities about possibly offering, with the help of the city, some educational component, whether it's a dual enrollment class or a course, and then they can log their hours, and then we can figure out a way to pay them for that. We're also looking at a percentage of their time where they can do virtual or online work and get credit and paid for that. We're also looking at different types of professional development. So we have different entities that are offering us curriculum that young people can then do continuous learning and improvement. And then the last thing that's been thrown around with the city and the partners is some kind of project that young people can do with the help of an adult virtually, some kind of project that's needed either in the community or around the city that then can be presented at the end of the summer. This is, I think, a great idea, but what I'm really interested in is how are we going to fill our programs are 6 weeks. Hopefully 30 hours a week. I don't want young people to get what we call, screen drain or screen numb. So what are we doing around them for most of our 16 to 19-year-olds so that they can have a productive summer, obviously learn. Our young people have, there's been some trauma there. Our seniors have missed graduations and proms, and some young people don't know if they're gonna make it, where do my credits stand going from junior to senior year? So, the summer is really, really important. And Boston as a whole, through the mayor's office, other nonprofits, and the PIC, is trying to imagine what the summer looks like for a 6-week program starting July 6th into August for about 30 hours a week. And, talking about the different levels. So that's where we are right now. I've gotten many calls and emails from other partners and cities around the country saying, hey, what's Boston doing? Is the private sector offering this? Some private sector companies are still hiring and moving forward. I have 19 career specialists working with 30 schools that are engaging young people to get them prepped for phone interviews or Zoom interviews. We're doing webinars almost daily with our young people to keep them engaged and also just checking in on them, obviously collecting resumes and things like that. But this is where we are in Boston. I don't know where our number is going to end up. And in a few weeks, we can tell you what some of the internships and jobs will look like with different components of, project-based learning, educational components, and, some kind of project or project development or professional development. So I know we're running, I cut my presentation a little short because we're running out of time, but I just wanted to leave it there and just say one thing to all the other cities and counties and states out there is that you're not alone. I know it's May 7th. There's still a lot of planning and thinking about how to get young people on payroll and get them, all of this stuff. But the best of plans always have to just encourage some flexibility, and maybe even starting a week late if that happens. So I just want to thank everyone for their work and also other ideas. I am a panelist, but also I'm here to learn and be a thought partner. So thank you very much for having me and just hearing a quick overview of what's going on in Boston.
Thank you, Josh. Next, I'd like to introduce Laura Johnson, Vice President of Communications at NSLA, to lead us in some discussion questions.
Thank you, everyone. And that was a really rich, timely, and really critical conversation. So we just have a few minutes left, and I think Leslie said we can stay on a little longer. If those, we would love to entertain more questions. But just to start us off, this is for Charlie or even Austin. Can you share a little bit about what you would say to the corporate community and to municipal leaders about how we reimagine what's possible for summer youth employment? How do we get more corporations and municipal leaders really thinking about this issue and really on board to step up and lead in a big way? Charlie, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Austin, you want to start? Okay.
Yeah, of course. So we've gotten creative in coalition building, have worked a lot with business alliances where there's the majority of major employers together in one space, sort of workshopping how to solve these challenges. And we found that if there's more collaborative investment and support in workforce programs like this, then it reduces the burden for any one player to figure this out. And a lot of our conversations with employers are about sort of reducing their costs and increasing their outcomes of workforce development over time, and showing them that if they're able to think differently about virtual pathways, which can be added on to workforce programs and degrees, that not only are they able to sort of have a scalable pipeline to identify future talent and understand who's job ready, but they can reach 10 times as many candidates and actually have a model for inclusive recruitment in a way that isn't just going out to the same 20 to 30 campuses. And for these particularly Fortune 500 companies, they're really interested in more distributed models of engaging talent given the challenges we're facing today.
That's great. Charlie, do you want to add anything there? And yes, we can.
Okay.
And are there any industries that are stepping up in particular in a big way? Are you seeing any particular sectors that are really engaged in this space?
Yeah, I know in Charlotte, the public sector actually has been really great. And, obviously Don is connected there, but tech, finance as well seem to be popular. I think that there's a key opportunity in technology. I think one of the reasons there is that as you think about your virtual learning or your virtual employment programs, likely tech companies are going to be more tech savvy, a little bit more progressive on that front. And something that has come out, across the country during COVID and is just, is managers and IT
Charlie, we're losing a little bit of your audio.
All the folks who they couldn't get to migrate to the cloud and start using Teams and shared documents and virtual conferencing are now being forced to do that. All these leaders that they had at their companies who they've been urging for years to adopt cutting edge technology to make processes more efficient, to streamline what they're doing, to make certain things more convenient for their employees or their customers. they're now being forced to do it. And so, my recommendation would be, as you think about how you change your programs and move virtual because of COVID, think about it in the context of actually what Austin presented. How can you do it this summer? But long term, how can you use this as a catalyst to actually make your programs better? Because maybe delivering a virtual pathway is actually more convenient for a student because they can access content or networking opportunities in their daily flow of work or school. They can access things on their own time. And so, of course, we're never going to be, I'm in the online learning space, and we're never going to be advocates of getting rid of in-person networking and classroom instruction. And there's so many amazing benefits to interaction with young people, and they need that. But there are also ways to connect these programs better. And so this is actually an opportunity for you. Definitely encourage you to do that.
So it looks like we might have lost Laura. I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple questions. In fact, Charlie, since you're still up right now, we have a lot of questions about how people might take advantage or get connected to LinkedIn Learning in their community.
Hey, Leslie, I actually missed the beginning of your question. It cut out on me. Could you repeat it?
Yes, we have a lot of questions about how people might connect with LinkedIn Learning for their community.
Feel free to share my contact information directly, Leslie. You can reach out to me. It may not be me that I put you in touch with, but we have regional account managers across North America, and we can chat with you about how you can get started. I want to be transparent that LinkedIn Learning is a commercial resource. There is a lot of amazing resources that we can share with you that are free as well, and we'll definitely do that. But the partnership that we have in place with Charlotte for this summer, it is a commercial partnership.
Great, thank you. I have a question. There's a question for Charlotte, North Carolina, and maybe Dahlia, you can help us with this. When students are doing virtual learning programs in Charlotte, are they required to do any work or tasks for the company along with that, or is it essentially a professional development exercise for them?
So, yeah, so we have, we are definitely requiring them to be linked in with and have some type of FaceTime with those employers and have those employers share kind of that trajectory, what they expect from them. This is not a school. This is not an extension of school. This is actually work. And so we want them to interface with the local businesses who are in those industries to make sure that they're touching base with them about projects, about what goes on during the workday there, about opportunities, and have them kind of be peer mentors for them, but then also expect them to be engaged in the work. We can't stress it enough that this is not just them sitting in a seat and staring at a screen all day. They also will have a responsibility to attend panel discussions. They will, some of them will have virtual tours so that they understand what the new manufacturing floor looks like, because it doesn't look like what it looked like, 5, 10, 20 years ago. So the expectation is that they will have some engagement with the employers, that they will actually be able to share a peer mentor with some of their the folks that are in this virtual experience with them on their team, and that they will learn about those industries through those employers, and that they will reach out to them on LinkedIn and continue conversations, because that's the beauty of having LinkedIn involved in this, is that they can reach out to those folks and continue those conversations even after this virtual experience over the summer.
Okay, thank you. So we're at 3 o'clock, but we still have a lot of questions. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do some of these final announcements that we had. And those of you who are able to stay on with us, we're going to have a few more minutes of questions for our panelists. So just some of our wrap-up announcements before everybody leaves, those who need to leave. Look out for more announcements for our webinars, for our Voices of Summer webinar series. We're going to be having some next week on arts programs and another one on the future of summer learning in this COVID-19 era. I'll also mention that our National Summer Learning Week will be this year, will be July 6th to the 11th. It's a great time to celebrate everything summer and advocate for summer, the importance of summer. So we hope you will join us for that. We will make more announcements about that as well, but you can find other resources on our website. And we are still planning for our conference right now to be in November 16th to the 18th in Washington, D.C. Our early bird registration is open on our website until May 31st. And then if you're not following us on social media, these are our social media tags. It's the best place to keep in touch with us and hear all the latest news and announcements that we make. So for those of you who have to jump off now, thank you for joining us. We will be in touch. Any additional questions will be included in the recording to the webinar and slides that are shared out later. Thank you. So to go back, I mentioned we lost Laura. She had a power outage at her place. So I'm going to ask a couple of the questions that she wanted to ask to our panel. And if Jesseline, she had a question for you about a blog post that she had read by a student activist in New York, outraged by the cuts to SYEP programs there. She very wisely said that the cost of inaction on this front will be felt for years. So how can young people lift their voices and be agents of change around this issue?
No, and that's a very important question. And I'm going to answer another question that came in through panelists as well in answering this one, which was millions of students, especially people of color, don't have tech, let alone internet in our city. How can equitably outreach to them? So I'm going to touch on how youth can engage with city government and how city government can engage with youth during this time. So one of the ways that youth can be engaged with their city is, especially if they have been a part of previous summer youth employment programs, an opportunity is to reach out to alumni, reach out to that network of folks who were part of the program before, and reach out to some of the coordinators that were a part of those programs. Just to build a coalition and think through some strategies, and so that you know what you want to ask for when you talk to your city officials, and also think through strategies with them as well. A way that we have seen that students are being outreached to during this time is by conducting surveys on cell phones. Doing outreach like that has been really critical, especially when some of these summer youth employment programs are trying to think through strategies with their students, or get a sense of like where students are at, what students don't have technology access, let alone broadband. So we have seen that cities have been doing outreach to their students through that, some newsletters, but we have seen that cities have also used their community-based partnerships to really outreach to their community. So those community nonprofits that they work with, the intermediaries that have the touchstone, have been really helpful in the communication to students during this time.
Thank you. There was a question about students with disabilities. So for Charlotte or Boston, have any of you thought about or worked with students with disabilities in the past in your youth employment programs?
Yes, we have worked with students with disabilities in Charlotte, both physical and mental disabilities, and several other challenges as well. And we basically treat them the same. We want to make sure that we're assessing their skills and not their disabilities, but we're assessing the skills and really being very positive about how we can map them to an experience based upon their skills and their abilities. So we place them with employers who are very, very sensitive and very nurturing and caring, so that they can make sure that they are not just giving them grunt work, but they're giving them meaningful task work and opportunities to grow in the industry that they're interested in. So we're very much in sync with our business partners to make sure that this happens, because we can't do this alone. We have a a host employer, what we call a host employer orientation, and we go over ways that they can support all of our youth, especially youth who have multiple challenges, such as a disability. We also work with Goodwill Industries of the Central Piedmont, and we have them also offer us suggestions for how we can engage and then other opportunities for our youth as well.
And Boston is in the same boat. We work with any and all students. We look at motivation as our key. And so we have, just like Charlotte and other places, employers that are better suited. And then we place any and all students that we can.
So there's a question about staff. How do we create buy-in among staff? How do we minimize the perception of extra work, or we don't have time to train, supervise, etc.? That's for anybody.
Yeah, quickly, just in Boston, we are lucky because our biggest job developer is our mayor. But then we also offer a host of services to make the partnership successful. So we have an employer network, we do peer-to-peer training, and then we also do supervisor orientations so that, you know, hosting a young person is seen as a opportunity to not only learn about yourself and the young person, but see if you are meant to be a supervisor or manager at a different level, but then also to get some work done. So we offer plenty of services to try to get people to see the young people coming in for a 6 or 8 week experience as an opportunity.
Thank you. So for Charlotte or for Boston, so for those youth that are going to be on site during the summer, do employers ask about the liability of having summer youth on site with COVID-19? Is that a concern for them?
So we have not had that as a concern. The employers who are going to be hosting are making arrangements right now to make sure that safeguards are in place to where that won't be an issue for them as much as they can. We don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know for sure until we're in it, but as much as possible, they're already making those arrangements right now. And again, you know, communication is the key. We're staying in contact with each other. We do have the host employer orientation where and it's a webinar-based orientation where they can share ideas and, you know, kind of communicate and correspond with each other about some of the safeguards that they're putting in place. But they're already working on those plans right now.
Great. And this is for anybody on the panel. I think this is on a lot of people's minds. Can we hear about funding streams that are being leveraged to keep summer youth employment programs operational this summer? So any that you're currently using, or maybe other ideas for what that other people might tap into?
You know, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, you know, in Charlotte, one of the things that we're doing is, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we do have some employers, even though they're not able to host the intern on their site this summer, they're actually still offering the funds to provide the virtual experience. So that's one thing. We have an ask that went out. We created a nice memo. We shared with them how important they are to our process, not just to have them on site, but if they can't, to make sure that they support that student as well. And then we're making sure that they're going to be connected to that employer and share their gratitude and stay connected with them through the LinkedIn platform. We also apply for grants. And grants are used, and then we have our general dollars that are awarded through the City of Charlotte's general budget, and we utilize those budget forms. So the budget, the general dollars, and local dollars, and through grants and through host employers that are providing funds, even though they may not be hosting an intern on their site this summer.
Any other ideas for funding? I have maybe two quick last questions. One for Charlie. Do youth receive any kind of certificate or digital badging?
Yeah, when you take a LinkedIn Learning course, you will receive a badge that you can just kind of print and download as a PDF, or with one click, you can actually stamp it onto your LinkedIn profile. So it'll show under your accomplishments. It's especially helpful for somebody who might not have any prior job experience or doesn't know people who do and have a hard time. That's the hardest thing when you create a LinkedIn profile if you've got nothing to put on it, right? So it gives them a way to fill out that profile, build their brand, and then obviously when hiring managers go there, they'll be able to look, they invested this much time and effort into learning these skills.
Okay, thank you. And for Josh or for Dawn, have either of you thought about are you thinking about placing youth at local hospitals this summer? And how is that going to work if they're requiring extra testing, or are you avoiding some hospitals this summer?
Yep, and it's actually, I'm hopping on another call shortly. So in a normal year, we would place about 650 young people at the hospitals in Boston. We are going to go by the same guidelines. Some of the jobs will change at the hospital, so there'll be certain wings or buildings that will not be patient facing. So the young people will be doing, IT or paperwork and things like that. But any other testing and stuff that is needed, my career specialists and the students will abide by that and make sure that we are, going by the hospital's protocol. But for the most part, the hospital testing on a normal year is pretty, because of HIPAA, you have to get, all the screening done, which takes a long time. That could be a challenge this year if certain community centers or local health centers aren't open. So that will be a challenge, but we will adhere to that. Some hospitals are still planning on hiring young people.
Great to know.
Yeah, and that's the same in Charlotte as well. And one of our main hospitals, Atrium Healthcare, is also looking at offering a hybrid program where the students are going to be doing virtual as well as on campus. So there's going to be a hybrid program this summer. But they are moving forward with no fallout at all, no withdrawal of the number of students that they plan to put through their program this summer.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for sticking around for a few extra minutes. Hopefully we were able to get to your questions. A follow-up email will be sent out to everybody who registered for this webinar with a link to the recording of this, the slides, contact information, some of the resources that were mentioned. So we'll make sure that that'll probably go out today or tomorrow. Thank you again for joining us. I hope that you found this informative. And as I said, stay tuned for more updates, for more announcements about upcoming webinars as well. Thank you.